You know what they say, the less of you there are in the hierarchy, the more valuable you are. He's the admiral that went to the place where all the supernovas and captured 500 pirates off screen, of course. In this One Piece world, there's this crazy large continent that goes across the whole planet, the Red Line. And in this world government, there is a whole bunch of fighters or workers under this world government to help kind of keep the order or whatever. And when it comes to being a top fighter in this world government, there's obviously not going to be that many at the top of the food chain. But one of the beings I'm going over today is at the top of the food chain. It's this being, or admiral of the Navy, known as Kizaru. See, there's a lot of different rankings and power levels, and Kizaru just happens to be one of the beings that's very high, one of the highest ranked fighters in the Marines. Out of the other three at this time period, of course, there's always at least three. It's confirmed that he is the fastest out of the Navy admirals. That doesn't mean people can't react to him. That just means he has the edge compared to everybody else. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's hard to believe that some of these characters were ever kids at one point, but he's one of those characters that, of course, has gotten stronger throughout the years. He wasn't always an admiral level, but just like everybody else, he had to rise through the ranks. A lot of this stuff happens off screen, so we may forget that these characters still have to work hard. But yeah, he was at one point a vice admiral, meaning that there was one point where he was lower than admiral rank, which is still pretty high though. It's only one rank below it. Stated right here, he's one of the strongest men in the Marines. So this title isn't just for show. It actually has a lot to do with how strong he is, being a Navy admiral. It's little stuff like this nobody notices. I mean, Whitebeard was battle damaged and hurt up from other beings fighting, but it's implied that Kizaru does have super strength, like in this occasion here, pinning Whitebeard himself weapon down for a second or two. Notice when he blasted him, he stepped on it again here, they imply super strength. The manga implied it here, him pinning his foot on his weapon. He should have similar super strength to the other admirals that they can do stuff like this too, you know. His arm just doesn't break apart. It gives you implications of super strength too, or durability, you know. This also implies he has super strength. I mean, Zoro's the type of being, even in these early days, could lift houses and stuff. It just makes sense. He's one of those characters that ate one of the many mysterious, mystical fruits, known as devil fruits, that if a character eats it, they get superpowers. Kizaru ate one. He ate the fruit that helped him turn into light. He's actually light, y'all. He has a lot of super strength too, even without this fruit, but this fruit definitely helps give him a boost when it comes to his power level. For example, he can use light to reflect off surfaces to actually travel as a beam of light so he can get to his destination faster. You got occasions like this, how he can just kind of slither through the island to get where he needs to go, taking sharp turns and moving in zigzags to get through the island ridiculously fast because he's literally made of light, then turning solid in the nick of time to blitz a beam with a super kick if he wishes. Like if you don't have a special technique known as Haki, when you harness your spirit or inner willpower to make armor around yourself, I haven't got to that yet in this video. If you don't have techniques like that, or sea prism stone, or sea salt, or the ocean water, shooting bullets is kind of a waste of time. Like how the heck do you shoot light? Like he's actually light. This is shown when a wrecking ball literally goes right through him. All this debris goes right through him. Most of your attacks are just a waste of time. Like, for example, this being like Rayleigh, of course, is a top tier, so he's able to cut Kizaru with a sword slash because he has like the special technique, but if you don't have this, it's kind of impossible to hit him. So having his body be severed isn't really a big deal because he can just reattach himself because he's light. He can make light constructs like a sword, use light to hurt your eyes, or just spam a whole bunch of blasts spanning a wide radius. With his devil fruit ability, or one could say light manipulation, Kizaru can make, one could say, his own version of Shadow Clone Jutsu. Against Gear 5 Luffy, of course, you can see like it's literally multiple hymns of light to the point where you can't really tell which one's the real him. Because when you hit all these clones or whatever of him, the real him is over here somewhere else. It's obvious he's a fan of using lasers, whether he use it with his finger or a leg kick laser. He's got stupid good aim with lasers. Being this far away, he can shoot the small key that Luffy got in his hand and break it with his light beam. Being a former vice admiral and currently being an actual admiral of the Navy, he's one of the highest ranked beings in the army, in the military or world government basically. And it's confirmed in this universe that all beings in a vice admiral rank or higher automatically know this special manifestation power known as Haki, to where they can put armor around their fists, make their attacks harder, be able to sense people's presence. It's usually awakened through intense training, but every vice admiral above have this. There's obviously ranks below this that have Haki, but Vice Admiral, that's the bare minimum. You have to have Haki to even be a Vice Admiral. Like in this occasion, Whitebeard using his earthquake ability power, there was like this platform that was about to get destroyed. But thanks to Haki, the Admirals made like a barrier to shield from all this BS. And you guessed it, Kizaru was there, one of the few admirals able to do this. Yes, he can put armor around his body to increase his range of his physical blows without necessarily using his light ability. Because Haki can be used not only around your limbs, but you can actually extend the range of your Haki output to where you don't necessarily have to touch something to attack it. Haki is vital in order to be considered a real top tier in the One Piece universe. So it would be extremely strange if somebody at the top of the military fighting forces couldn't do this. Beings that can use Ornament Haki, just because you have Ornament Haki doesn't mean you're automatically an Admiral level being though. Like, it helps you with better defense and armor to deflect attacks, but this same being Sentomaru, even though he has this ability known as Haki to make armor around his fist, even though he can actually touch actual light or hit intangible beings or logis in his universe, it doesn't mean he's on Kizaru's level. Kizaru just overpowers his Haki with his light-based abilities and probably his Haki as well, to the point where this being that can use it is finished. Observation Haki Kizaru should also have, to where it basically gives you super senses. You can kind of predict an opponent's attack. It's confirmed that Observation Haki is something all people Vice Admiral or above have, so Kizaru obviously has it. This could be Super Hearing, or this could be Observation Haki, all these Admirals, Kizaru being one of them. You see how it shows the ear. It's implied here he evaded characters like Bonnie Beings that can touch you and turn you young or some crap, then parry you. Since we know he has Observation Haki, that's pretty good. And he's literally made of light, so one could say he can shapeshift or reshape his body to where he can avoid attacks. Kind of how like this character's doing by reshaping his body so the fist can't actually hit him. He's light, so Kizaru probably could do this too. This is implied on occasions like this, where characters like Whitebeard can actually hit him, but he reshaped himself so he wouldn't get hit. Like, you can kind of see a part of his head is gone, stuff like that. He can reshape his body just like this character can to avoid attacks, if that makes sense. Like, this occasion right here implies that he bent around or reshaped his body around the attack so it wouldn't hit him solidly. You got a case like this that's implying that he has super senses, because characters that have Haki and can actually hit beings that are made of light or hit beings that have fluid bodies solidly, you can see him react and dodge such attacks. Kizaru has reflexes, obviously. And even if you manage to hit him, if you don't hit him hard enough, he can counter and hit you down. And for those wondering, when it comes to speed, yes, I'm going to go over his speed in this video as well, but it's literally stated out of his own mouth that speed is weight. Have you ever been kicked at the speed of light, implying that he can actually attack you at the speed of light? The way they animate his leg turning into light, then him kicking you, kind of implies it. It's even mentioned when Kizaru was fighting a stronger version of the main character that acceleration is power. Kizaru is one of those characters that has no problem using his acceleration as power. Like, he would even get far distance from his opponent. Even if his opponent is over here, he's not afraid of flying away just so he can get distance. Then he can use this to build momentum to hit with more force and power, thanks to him using this distance to give himself more acceleration. So he actually uses his travel speed in combat to increase his striking power. Like right here, it appears turning into actual light, using that speed build-up to kick and send beings flying with a super speed kick. There's many races in One Piece. You got giants, people that are obviously bigger than normal people, so they're obviously born stronger than the average size human just from their sheer size, right? Then you got other beings like fishmen who are at birth stronger than your average human because of the way their species is. Like this being known as Arlong, for example. But despite that genetic advantage making them 10 times stronger than your average human at birth, because the way they're born, Kizaru, back when he wasn't even an admiral, but yet he was a vice admiral rank, beat the mess out of a fishman like Arlong. This fishman that can pick up houses and swing him with his bare hands, and even troll and put him upside down. While he was a vice admiral, Borsalino, he was able to give him the hands like this. Like I already said, speed is weight, so he can hit really hard. Like he can kick you so hard to where it sends you through brick walls. Like you see him destroying the walls with his kicking power. Beings this big, he can kick hard enough and send them through multiple buildings. Like you see him right here. This guy went through this one, and yeah. And yes, he can straight up kick beings through buildings and destroy the buildings themselves. You can even see them crumbling after he hits them. His kicks have enough power to easily kick beings through big robots with his kicking power. Honestly, he's a One Piece top tier. Destroying buildings or kicking them down is nothing for somebody in his tier. The main character, of course, Luffy, of course. During this time period, he wasn't nowhere near his peak. But even back during these days, Luffy was strong enough physically to punch hard enough to where he could just basically level city blocks with raw strength. Of course, Luffy can withstand what he can hit, you know, because Luffy's durable as heck. Luffy at this time period was considered a joke to Kizaru, just sending him flying with kicks. Yeah, as fast as Luffy is, he's too slow and gets kicked, doing all this damage after his attack. Like, dang, Kizaru, how many times are you going to kick Luffy? He even gave Luffy a pep talk and says, guts alone isn't enough. You can't help people with sheer will. Then proceeds to kick him. I mean, Luffy can't get a break. He's kind of getting gangbanged here. Kizaru blasted through him here. Being stronger than Luffy like this pretty much confirms he can kick down city blocks with his blunt kicks if he really felt like it. I mean, you got to think about it, his leg can actually turn into light itself. Then he can actually put armor around his limbs to make his strikes even harder without necessarily even having to make contact. Not to mention leveling a city block is something lower tiers can do when it comes to raw destructive power. And of course, he's an Admiral, one of the strongest fighters. Of course, he can do this. And Luffy, even 2 years ago, a weakened version of Luffy was able to do some major damage to this zombie entity known as Ores with his striking power, messing up the spine of it and everything. This being that's apparently dubbed the Continent Puller. And you know how big a continent is in One Piece? There's literally a continent in One Piece known as the Red Line that goes around the whole world. And apparently the being that Luffy hurt and damaged real bad, breaking his spine, was a continent puller. And we know that Kizaru was way above Luffy by the way he's been handling him in this video 2 years ago, Luffy. That lets you know how destructive these characters are. But yeah, it's just a statement. Don't take my word for it. That's just something to think about, but that's none of my business though. You gotta worry about an Admiral just casually pulling up and beating beings that can casually pull continents, but that's none of my business. I mean, if we're talking about his blast power, though, because he's literally light and he can shoot energy blasts, so it's obvious whatever he can kick with, he can blast with, one could say, because we've seen him blast holes through buildings, light work. Did you have any doubts he could do this, right? We just seen him do worse with kicks. Like, you know, the mightiest pirate himself, Gold Roger, had like a right-hand man known as Rayleigh. This guy Rayleigh was confirmed to be at least 100 times stronger than Luffy during this time period, even while he's old and out of his prime. So one can say leveling a city block is definitely easy for somebody like Kizaru. I mean, he fought in a slugfest with this being known as Rayleigh, which makes Kizaru more impressive. Like, I know this statement is probably just a pun, but if we was to take this seriously about Kizaru's raw power, being 100 times stronger than city block shattering, like, it's definitely believable he can level one city block, but times 100, that would pretty much change the game about how much his attacks can blow away. Like, imagine him having the blast power or kicking power to level 100 city blocks, right? So we know Luffy during this time can punch apart city blocks, and Rayleigh's 100 times stronger than him. Someone that's 100 times stronger than Luffy, Kizaru, is over here slugfesting it, what I mean, he has to be over hundreds of times stronger than Luffy at this point as well. No lie, this was kind of a cheap shot, but he blasted Marco off guard, one of the right-hand people of Whitebeard's crew. We seen him get a blast on Whitebeard here with his laser. So there was this island that had ridiculously large trees. Like, when you look at the trees compared to buildings in the nearby area, you can kind of get a perspective on how large they are. Kizaru had the blast power. In this occasion, it was a kick laser blast. He was able to blast and break these super large trees with his destructive power. Moments like this imply that he can take out a big chunk of a town with a simple blast. Trembling Mountain should be lightweight to him. I mean, and based on how tall and thick these trees are, like, they're so tall you can't even see the top of them on one panel. An example here, look at how wide the island itself is. One of these trees go this tall. Not to mention mountain shattering is just another day in life in this universe. I would personally like to see him delete a mountain with a kick or with sword slicing attacks. It's like his kicks are like nuclear bombs or kicks strong enough to blow away entire cities, if we're being honest. I mean, just a fight between two admirals. This isn't necessarily Kizaru on these occasions. This is Akainu and Okaji. Their fight can like permanently change the climate of an entire island. So we know two admirals can fight for 10 days because Okaji and Akainu fought for 10 days. Who's to say the same wouldn't happen if Kizaru fought either of the admirals? You know, they're all similarly ranked. They was all talked about together in a certain light. This is not Kizaru, but this is just an example. Other admirals can do this to an island, half hot, half cold. Kizaru could blast an island down the middle, just like the other admirals if he really just wished to. I mean, we've technically already seen Kizaru basically delete a town's worth. Or one could say something that's way bigger than mountains, a tree that's way bigger than multiple buildings. We've seen him blast apart with ease. He's not even tired after that. Like, this is light work stuff to them, especially when it comes to the top tiers. And here's another good angle of how big these trees is. Kizaru can just obliterate. These trees make actual towns worth of buildings look tiny in comparison. He can break something like this apart. When his light kick or blast got diverted here, the size of the explosions are like bigger than buildings. Blasts here are so big that they're bigger than ships. The way his blast and power set is set up, he could probably take out an entire fleet of ships with ease based on his blast power type of destructive capacity. That's kind of proven here when he can blast this many lasers in pretty much every direction all around the section, even underwater. Of course, he can't follow underwater because that's one of the weaknesses of the Devil Fruit. Can't swim. Thank goodness he can't swim. He would just follow them underwater at light speed. Even in newer arcs when Luffy's like ridiculously strong now, like Luffy's actually Admiral-esque level or Yonko-esque level, the main character that has a new form and he has like an actual deity mode now. In this newest manga chapter, even though Luffy just got done battling Kaido and Luffy's ridiculously strong now, Luffy, look at his facial expression. Somebody very strong is coming. This is what he thinks about Kizaru apparently. Basically, to give you an idea of his power level is that, yeah, he can solo all the supernovas 2 years ago. A great example is that there was a being that used to be a rear admiral of the Navy, this being known as Drake. So this can give you somewhat of an idea of how strong Drake was. He's like a couple ranks below Admiral, and he's nowhere near Kizaru's level. This one we can talk about some speed. Like a little earlier, I already showed you Kizaru kicking him through brick wall and toppling the building, right? I didn't really bring up Kizaru's combat speed in this situation. Like, he was looking at Kizaru here, saw the light, couldn't really perceive his kick to show Kizaru's speed. I'm actually a big fan on how they animated it because it shows Drake looking at Kizaru, but he's too fast. He's still looking at the same spot and he couldn't react to his kick. The animators did their thing animating how fast he had to be because Drake was looking at him. His eyes didn't even move. Like, notice his eyes are still looking up this way, but Kizaru's kick is incoming. He's still looking up. His eyes are looking up. He's still looking up even though his foot is getting closer. I've already showed plenty of occasions of him messing up Luffy in this video, but he also messed up Zoro, who was weakened here. Other supernova that are strong in their own right he handled, like this being that has like multiple lives because of his strawman, by doing piercing laser blasts. And it looks like Hawkins didn't even try to move. Or if he did try to move, he wasn't fast enough to move in time. He makes this stuff look easy, even when these characters make big giant strawman avatars. He pretty much speed blitzes and handles all these rookies. Like, running away from him is no point because he's technically the fastest admiral, thanks to him actually being light. Luffy at this time period had this mode where he can raise his blood pressure, which increased his overall running speed and punching, fighting speed, and all this good stuff. He can move faster than I can see, blitzing other government agents that were weaker. When Luffy did the same fast technique against Kizaru and the admirals, he was too fast for him. Kizaru even said, "You're too slow." Since we know he's the fastest admiral, and we know he can attack at the speed of light, and there's characters in One Piece that can still keep up with these light speed attacks, implying that they're also speed of light when it comes to fighting speed. Kizaru can react to light himself as well when it comes to his own fighting speed, on top of traveling from point A to point B at light speed by turning the actual light. He uses this technique a lot to catch up with beings in raw speed. Like, for example, here, he turned in the light to travel to catch up to the Straw Hats. And he was able to catch up in an instant, but it lets you know beings like that are not even light can keep up with him. This is the being he can combat and react to in speed. Rayleigh turns in the light here. This character is running away. He zigzags and catches him by reflecting off surfaces. I showed this already, but this is how he was able to blitz him with a combination of his raw kicking power and just travel movement speed. He blitzed and kicked him through a building. I mean, there's plenty of occasions of him using his fighting speed in combat. Like, this character tried to hit him, moves out the way. Like, you can see he's invisible to him, and then that's when he blinded him here, and then started blasting him. Speed. Luffy threw him very far, saying he sure flew far. Now's our chance to escape. And when they say far, look how far he went. He was about to fall into the sea and everything. And even though he was thrown that far, his speed helps him to be able to get back to where he was. He has the fighting speed to keep up with the current state of the main character. You know, the main character that has fought Kaido already. It's even stated in this panel, he's the man that defeated Kaido, Emperor, one of the strongest beings in the world. Not only is Kizaru boxing it out with him in power, but when it comes to his raw speed, because technically this is one of Luffy's modes that actually specialize in speed. He's one of those characters that will hit you without you even knowing you're about to get hit. And then you're sitting there wondering, how did you even start flying? It's because of him. A bounty can kind of determine a character's combat abilities, or one can say their strength or power level in general in this show. But that's not the only thing, of course. But you guys know how there's the mightiest pirates in the world, the Emperors of the Sea. Beings with some of the highest bounties of all time, some of the mightiest pirates in the world. You got Kaido, Big Mama, ridiculously strong pirates with crazy bounties to kind of show their threat level, their wanted level to the Marines. These two top tier pirates in one spot actually duel it out. Thanks to their strength, Haki, and everything put together, they clash with one another. The clashes between these two can split the skies. This is like a common theme in One Piece when top tiers fight. They can split that much clouds. Their attack is affecting something that far away. You know how clouds are very high in the sky, and their attacks can affect all of this mess. And despite them two being on the same island, when they found out Big Mom was on the move and going to make contact with another emperor, they was talking about what force could handle such might. Warlords of the sea, admirals, and then here comes Kizaru saying, oh, should I head out and go get him? Kizaru wasn't scared to go to a place where two Yonkos was about to be at. But of course, he wasn't probably going to go by himself. He probably was going to bring some vice admirals with him and stuff, his own crew of soldiers or something. Like, even though Luffy's currently an emperor, Kizaru doesn't mind pulling up on him, despite knowing how strong Luffy has become. So you know he's a top tier being for a reason. Smart YouTubers like Vsauce have calculated what it would be like if a punch was 99% the speed of light. Kizaru's actually light speed, but something 99% the speed of light could automatically level a city. By default, you got Nuke Map that lets you know how crazy of an impact a 99% the speed of light punch would do via kinetic energy outburst, just to give you an idea. So shouldn't by default Kizaru's kicking power should be able to blow away a city, right? By default. I would also like to mention that Kizaru is an abnormally large human. He's like a 10-foot tall human, so of course his technically should be worse than your average human moving at 99% the speed of light. He even goes as far as saying speed itself is weight, implies that his raw speed increases his striking power. Just purely the fact based off his rank being one of the highest ranked fighters in the Marines, being way higher than characters way down in captain rank. You're probably thinking, what the heck does this have to do with Kizaru? Well, think about it. Captain ranks in the military are ranked captain. They're still not mighty enough to be admirals or vice admirals or rear admiral. Even though my boy Kobe right here is way stronger than your average captain, I know that's true, but he's still not admiral level. He still has to work his way up to the goal of being an admiral because that's his goal. Even with all this in mind, he's considered a low rank compared to a character like Kizaru. He's a character with an outer devil fruit, which is Haki, and thanks to him being trained by Garp, an admiral level being too, he can punch so hard, he can damage mountain-sized structures. A being that's literally an island, for example, was putting his arm out. His arm was like the size of a mountain. Confirmed here, a captain-level rank like Kobe can blast something as big as a mountain into smithereens. Like this being that can literally become a part of an island. This is not an exaggeration. Like you can literally see his eyeballs. He becomes one with the island and can make giant mountain-sized arms or hands. And captain ranks that are nowhere near admiral level can damage beings like this, mountain-sized arms. So with his blast power, what the heck do you think somebody like Kizaru can do to an island if lower tiers that are captain rank can do this? Of course Kizaru could blast an island or multiple away. His light kicks and stuff and sword attacks just make it ridiculous. Of course he can split it in half. The main character Luffy that's absolutely way stronger than he used to be. Luffy that's gotten so strong to where his base form can clash with top tiers and they split the heavens or the sky with their Haki based attacks. Kizaru was able to clash with a more recent main character, Luffy, even though Luffy stated himself he's 100 times stronger than he was 2 years ago. Luffy, after all the Haki upgrades fighting an Emperor of the Sea, Luffy has gotten strong enough with his punches, crazy Haki manipulative abilities and stuff. His punches can split the skies themselves. Like all these clouds get manipulated, sky splitting. Luffy can do this in his base form, and Kizaru can still clash with Luffy in a higher state than his base state. Has attacks that can actually make Luffy say ouch even in his Gear 5 Looney Tunes state. For all intents and purposes, this is a tough fight, but Kizaru technically was able to kinda, sorta stalemate an Emperor like Luffy. He legitly got struck in the head directly. And he was pretty damaged, and Luffy was pretty drained himself, an Emperor level being Gear 5, his mightiest state, to where both of these powerful beings hit two opposite directions going through buildings and structures. An admiral pushed Emperor this bad. Like, Kizaru's still conscious, but he's kind of tired from this fight with Luffy, and so is Luffy. So one could say they're both even, one could say. Saying he doesn't think he can move just yet while Luffy's drained. It's a common thing that all the Yonko level beings have the raw power with their Haki, Conqueror's Haki, infusion, striking power to be able to split the sky. It's pretty much all but confirmed that Kizaru could do something similar to be able to match an Emperor this hard. How much power you would need to actually split something that far away, like the clouds, or split that many clouds from that far away. Kizaru with his light attacks along with Conqueror's Haki infusion, there's implications he can do that too by being able to match an Emperor this good. I know you guys think calculations is boring, but yeah, trust me, you go watch their videos for yourself to see that apparently based on the calculations to be able to split the sky like this, it would take the energy needed to level multiple continents, implying that admiral level beings like Kizaru could level multiple continents by imbuing his legs with Haki, Conqueror's Haki infusion type stuff, similar to Emperors and such, Right. But we do need more screen time for admirals, though. Kicks that feel similar to multiple continents falling on your face? Do you think his kicks can do catastrophic damage to the moon or make a huge crater on the moon, causing moon trembling might? If he can level multiple continents, that would mean he could technically tremble the moon or whatever. What do you guys think? There's a lot of questions about his might, but what do you think about his power? Do you think he's holding some stuff back for the viewers? What do you guys think? But before I get going, thanks for the donations, everybody. Helps out a lot. Respect Kizaru, one of the 3 admirals. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.